Hi everyone, and welcome to Art with Nathan, and this is the last episode of the season. We've looked at the fundamentals of drawing. We've been looking at drawing with a linear instrument, and I thought for this final one I could do a demonstration on how we could incorporate different textures and marks with line into a very basic drawing. So let's get right into it. This is something you could try at home, not necessarily like a drawing from observation. I'm going to be drawing this just straight onto the board, but it's always good to draw an object. But this really is just to show you how you can use a variety of marks to create a picture. So what I've done here is I've just really very basically drawn a landscape. I've got like rolling hills, I've got a road leading into the distance, and I've very crudely drawn someone carrying a suitcase, and I thought I could have quite a dramatic skyscape going down here. So I've got a few decisions I'm going to make. I'm going to say it's going to come from dark to light over here. The hills are going to be quite dark. I want the road to be light, and the figure is going to be dark because I don't want to do too much. So I'm going to start with my lighter lines. So again, just like the previous lesson, I'm just going to start with some light hatch lines on the road. I don't want it to be too dark. I'm going to keep them very directional. I'm going to go over my figure just so I don't lose that movement. Okay. I'm going to use dots to portray my figure. There's something quite romantic about packing your suitcase off and heading off to the horizon. I remembered whenever we had a large drawing class, and so often students were doing this technique, which is actually called stippling, and would irritate a lot of people. If you imagine a wooden desk and a graphite lead, sounded very percussive. So I want the figure to be quite dark, so my stippling is going to be quite dense. Okay, and then his shadow, and if you really observe shadows, they're darker at the point of contact to which the object which the shadow comes from, and then they become lighter the further away. So I really try to portray that. In the middle of the road, I want some kind of growth, so it's like a dirt road where tractors or cars are driving. Notice how my growth becomes a bit taller as it comes closer to us. Okay. Alright, so I think for the sky, I want to use just a very basic linear element. I don't want you to think that it's rain. Really, we're not creating rain. Perhaps it might read as that. And each of these lines, I wanted to represent a similar but different texture. I'm going to do some work in the sky, I think. So this next one, maybe I'm going to change the direction a bit, make it slightly more dense. It's quite a grey day today here, so the sky looks quite similar to this. some of my favorite artists who portrayed skies. One is Vincent van Gogh. There's so much texture in his sky. If you look at the marks, it really is just pure, beautiful mark making. And you can just pick just about any painting, and he puts as much emphasis in a sky as he does in anything else. So I'm just moving to a thicker line because I want it to get darker as it gets higher. So I want a sense of drama. So again, I'm just sticking with a linear element, but I'm changing it up. If you remember in our last lesson, we created a rubric of different marks. So ideally I'd have that next to me, and I'll be able to really refer to that rubric in creating different textures. Try and find things that work well together. Another exercise you could take is take a single system of marks. So let's say it's these cross-hatching lines, and try do a variety of them that you can complete an entire picture with. That's also a really good exercise to do. Another artist who does tremendously good and dramatic skyscapes is this German artist called Edvard Munch. He's best known for a painting called The Scream. The original painting is actually stolen, and what exists now, and the image that we all have in our mind, is actually an oil pastel drawing. Okay, so unfortunately that original painting is lost. But what I absolutely love is that the sky oscillates, and out of the individual screaming. So I would give that image a Google, and you can have a look at it. Edvard Munch believed that a sunset carried a lot of anxiety, that he felt the world was potentially ending after a day. You know, he didn't see the beauty of it. He saw that the potential death of everything in a sunset. So he portrayed that fear, that anxiety, so well in that painting. So I'm going to use a crosshatch in my darkest area up here. I want it to be quite dense. So Edvard Munch is a part of a movement called the German Expressionists. And they were self-consciously a movement. So often these movements are named in retrospect. They look back and say, oh, this is what these guys are doing. But no, the German Expressionists were very much aware that they were German Expressionists. They had a manifesto and everything. I'm going to just do another line just to emphasize the darkness. Now again, remember, cross-hatching is a really great alternative to complete darkness. It just adds a bit more depth. I'm going to create just a slightly lighter area over here. There we go. Cool. So for these hills, I want them to also be quite dark. Again, I'm using just a linear element, just for these far away hills over here. Vincent van Gogh, on the other hand, was a part of a post-impressionist movement, but he really was trying to emulate the Impressionists, adding his own flair to it, and he definitely created something new. But he wasn't aware that he was a post-impressionist. It's not something that he touted. So I'm going to use contour lines to kind of get the flow, to create a sense of flow. These mountains over here. And I think I'm just going to use hatch lines in different directions over here. So I'm very much stuck with hatch lines. I haven't really used any scribbles. I would encourage all of you watching is be a bit braver than me and try a whole bunch of different ones. You just go ahead and copy this picture. One of these little tufts of grass. Let's try some scribbles. I might go over this. Actually, that's worked out quite good. And I'm just going to accentuate some idea of volume and hilliness with some hatch lines over the scribbles. Okay. Quite happy with that. So what you can do is you can go home and pick a composition that we've done before, whether it's a still life, or you could do something like this. If you have a postcard that you like, divide the picture into different areas and think about values as well when you're creating your different textured marks, and try to create an image using a variety of marks. Similar to what I've done here today. It's really rewarding. We're not trying to make a photographic image, we're trying to make a thoroughly drawing image. When people look at it, they're not going to mistake it for a photo. This is going to be using the absolute wonderful language of drawing, and that is what we should do as artists. That's my personal belief. But thank you so much if you've been watching this whole episode, this whole series of fundamentals of drawing, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. We're going to come up with another season art related. Really hope to see you there. Remember to like, share and subscribe. I'll see you next time.